uh, being in control of our finances. And this evening, we have the pleasure of having Miss Lisa Webb with us. I'm so excited to have her as our special guest. And I'll talk about Lisa's background in a few minutes. But as always, let's go ahead and start with a prayer. Lord, we thank you for this Monday night that you brought us all together, Lord. We thank you for your grace and mercy that covers us each and every day. Lord, bless all the families and communities that are joined on this live, Lord. And we just ask that you protect us in our homes as we go and we come from day to day, Lord. These and all other blessings we ask in your name. Amen. All right. So I want to kick us off tonight. February 1st starts our savings, our 30-day savings challenge. And so whether you have your piggy bank or your purse or your boot, Anita has two Similac milk cans to put her money in. Whatever you are putting your money in, I hope you have it tonight. And I'm going to start us off with my first dollar into my pig. And I've got a partner in this. My grandson said he's going to join me. So I couldn't hold his pig and my pig together, but we're going to kick it off. And we are going to go the full 30 days. So we'll go from February 1st to March 2nd, because as you know, February is a short month for us. So we want to give everybody the opportunity to have the full 30 days for this challenge. So get your whatever you're going to hold your money in together, because we are on the road to financial freedom. Okay. All right. So with that being said, I want to talk about our guest tonight, Miss Webb. So let me tell you a little bit about Miss Webb. I had the pleasure of meeting her through a mutual friend of mine, and I am so glad we have made that connection. Lisa Webb has over 20 years of success in direct sales and marketing in both financial services as well as the computer services industry. Currently, Lisa's been a wealth management advisor with Merrill Lynch since 2003. And that's where my start with Lisa was, with Merrill Lynch. Lisa's a certified financial planner, a certified plan fiduciary advisor, a designated designation award for the Certified Financial Planner Board of Standards Inc. Lisa, that was a mouthful. I'm going to have you help me on that one. And the National Association of Plan Advisors, respectively. With over 17 years of experience in the industry, Lisa offers a wealth of knowledge and engagement in wealth management to individuals, families focusing on financial planning and development. A disciplined wealth management strategy to build, preserve, and eventually transfer assets to heirs and charitable organizations. Born in Nashville, Tennessee, Lisa grew up in New York City and is a graduate of Pace University with a bachelor's of art in computer science. Additionally, Lisa attended Vanderbilt's Owens Executive MBA program in 2007, 2008, and she aims to provide a high touch service experience. And I can tell you that is nothing less than the truth. She provides a high touch experience. I have talked to Lisa to 8, 9 o'clock at night sometimes, and she is just as personable and bubbly as she is when I talk to her at 10 o'clock in the morning. And I don't entrust my financial wealth to just anybody. So she welcomed me with open arms as I started this relationship with her. And I said, Lisa, you have got to come talk to RAP about financial freedom. So with that, I want to turn it over to Ms. Webb and give her the floor. All right, Lisa.
All righty. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate the opportunity to meet you all virtually, and would like to take a few minutes of your time just to talk about how do you accomplish your goals and your financial goals in 2021. So if you can put up the slide presentation, we can go ahead and get started.
Okay.
Perfect. So the topic tonight is achieving your financial goals in 2021. And that's a tall order, especially after we've all experienced 2020, and we want to say good riddance to 2020. So this is a tall order, but this is there's a lot of information. I want to simplify the information, and so that this is in manageable chunks and bites, so that you'll have an actionable action plan at the end. Next slide, please. All right, so in the agenda, what we're going to cover is I'm going to tell you how to write your 1-year vision statement, how to break down these goals into manageable chunks so that you can accomplish them this year. We're going to set some goals. We're going to talk about some investing basics. And then we're going to talk about when is a good time to seek a financial advisor. I mean, there are all kinds of ways that you can invest. You can invest in groups. You can try to do it on your own, and there are some or you can do a combination of the both. So we're gonna, and then open it up for questions and answers, and just talk some closing remarks I'd like to make. Things to consider that we all forget, like updating your beneficiary statement, something simple like that. So we're going to get right into it. So if you can go to the next slide, please. So the coronavirus pandemic has impacted nearly every aspect of our lives, having significant impact on people all across the country, our families. We all know of someone who's been impacted or had a death from it, and as the economy is reopening and reopening businesses, we're going in fits and starts, and it still has a continuing economic headwinds due to cautious consumers and the business sentiment. So we have significant headwinds that are going to last through the rest of this year. Although there is some good news, is once we can get this virus behind us, is going to be what our analysts are saying is tremendous pent-up demand in businesses, and some businesses are going to have huge growth opportunities. So this is the time to be looking for opportunities. Next slide, please. So one of the ways to weather a storm is to remember, here's some key discipline things that you can do is, one, remember why you're investing, and just think about some of the storms we weathered, the impact of financial crisis of 2008. Remember, that was huge. Actually, we didn't even have to go back that far. The pandemic, when the markets were closed in the March of 2020, we had huge businesses shutting down, first time ever. Basically the whole world shut down. So that had a huge impact on the stock market. But if you remember these key disciplines, remember why you're investing, stick to your investment principles, stay committed, and continue to look for opportunities. Those who didn't panic saw their portfolios come right back up, and had in the year 2020 finished off the significantly higher. Okay. Can you hear me now? I just got a message. Speak a little louder. Can you hear me now, Bridget?
Yes.
Great. Okay. So we were talking about, I'll just repeat that real quickly, during any market crisis, the one we've just passed in the end March of 2020, and prior to that, we had the 2008 with his significant, or these were significant, what they call black swan events, that if you remember why, keys to weathering a storm, remember why you're investing, stick to an investment principle, stay committed, and continue to look for opportunities. Next slide, please. Okay, so what is your vision statement, or what are your goals for this year? So, and Habakkuk 2:2, then the Lord answered me, write the vision, make it plain on tablets, so he may run who reads it. And then Benjamin Franklin says, failing to plan is a plan. Failing to plan is planning to fail. So it's important that you write your goals down. Write it, for those who have, write on a piece of paper, write it in a Word document, write in a spreadsheet, write what you're trying to accomplish, and have a way to continually look at it and reevaluate it to make sure you're on track. So writing the goal down is key. Next slide, please. So, okay, so there are different types of goals, okay? While some goals are more important than others, one of the things we want to distinguish on this slide is the difference between essential goals, important goals, and aspirational goals. So while you may have many goals, the essential goals these are the goals that absolutely must happen, that the resources that you have, you'll utilize those to solve these goals first, followed by goals that are important, and then aspirational. So for example, essential goals for you might be, I need to increase my percentage that I add to my 401k, or I need to consistently save for a retirement plan. And you can specify how much that you need to save on an annual basis for your retirement plan. Important goals might be starting a new business. You might want to start a new business. It may not be this year, next year, you're considering it. And some aspirational goals that it would be nice to travel in retirement or purchase a vacation home sometime. These are essential goals. The essential goals have a more immediacy and urgency, and just being able to distinguish between the three are important. Okay, next slide, please. So how do you do this action plan? So on this slide, your action plan, your vision, or another way of putting it, your major goal. So maybe one of your major goals is to save for a emergency savings. So each of us should have an emergency savings anywhere between 3 to 6 months of monthly expenses. So if your monthly expenses are like $3,000 a month, then you should have anywhere between 3 times 3 is 9 to 6. So anywhere from 3 to 18,000 in a savings, or particularly in a savings account. Now, because interest rates are kind of are fairly low, you're not going to make a lot of money, but this money is supposed to be for emergency savings. Typically, you wouldn't have emergency that's going to take 6 months of savings all at once, but it's good to have that. And as you move more into retirement, you can increase that amount, or should increase that amount, so that you have some cash on hand. Cash is an allocation, so to speak. So one way to break down this goal would be your major goal, which should take anywhere between 6 to 12 months to complete. So you can see on that chart. And then, so the goal is save 6 months of monthly expenses. Then a minor goal, you can have the minor goals to this major would be, and the minor goals, the minor initiatives are what we're calling here. Major initiatives, minor initiatives would be 3 to 6 months to complete. They take between 3 to 6 months to complete. So maybe as part of helping me to save for my emergency expenses is to pay off or to consolidate some credit card debt. Okay. So there are steps involved to paying or consolidating this credit card debt. So one would be a project. You would break those down into little projects, and the projects can go anywhere from 1 to 3 months to complete. But one thing to know is with goals, they need to be specific, time-based, and measurable. So under this project, it would be create a budget and have it due by 3/1/2021. So that's a budget. And then there might be tasks. So the task involved, so there's a number of steps to saving for that 6 months. And I would write them out into either minor, and then break them down further into projects and then tasks. So one would be to create a spreadsheet with listing all my debt and what has to be paid, call the credit card companies, see who's consolidating, or look at my budget to see where I can pay off some of these, and now take that money that I'm no longer paying on debt to save for emergency savings. So essentially this is a goal, um, uh, 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 accomplishing your major goals. It could be, one of them could be buying a home. So that would be another goal. So then what do you have to, what's involved in buying a home? Well, you have to save for a down payment. You have to make sure your credit is over a certain amount. You've got to run a credit. So you would break these goals or these major initiatives down into these smaller steps. But to be successful in 2021, we want to set these initiatives, these major initiatives, major goals. You could use different words, so that we can accomplish them and have them completed in 2021. So pick those, and you typically wouldn't want to have more than 4 or 5, because then it becomes unmanageable. You want, stick between 2 to 4 goals, and work on those. And what you'll find as you're accomplishing and moving along, you'll start getting that motivation. You'll still more confidence, and then you'll be more motivated to keep going. So you want to have some small successes. So you want to break this down into very measurable, manageable steps.
And Lisa,
Uh-huh.
I think one of the things you said that we typically don't think about is having cash on hand.
Mm.
I know a couple of years ago when there was a significant storm in South Florida, and some of my relatives were vacating the area. And what they found is the ATM machines were shut down.
Right.
So if you didn't have some cash on hand for that emergency, set aside from your emergency fund to have liquid cash that you can get your hands on right away is equally important. And, I know we don't always like to have a ton of cash in our house, but whatever that amount is that will allow you to survive a couple of days if you had to leave your home because of, some flooding, storm, whatever the situation may be, that you had that cash you could leverage.
Absolutely. Next slide, please. Okay, so here are some investment basics. Okay, so on the left-hand column, choosing investments, you have the things you need to consider are what are your goals, your time horizon, and your risk tolerance. So depending on your time horizon, so if you've got years, if you've got 20 years for a particular goal, then you can afford to take on more risk, or you can take on risk earlier because you have a longer time horizon to weather ups and downs in the markets. Okay, so for example, I get from some clients, okay, I want to invest. Here's what I have, and I'll ask them, well, what's your time horizon? Well, I'm looking to buy a house, so in another 6 months. So they want to have some return in 6 months. Well, you need to keep that money sitting in cash, or some kind of cash equivalent, for a simple reason: you don't have enough time horizon to weather any ups and downs in the market, particularly if you want to keep your principal intact. So there are risks in investing. So that's why knowing what your goals are, your time horizon, and how much risk that you're willing to take. So over on the right-hand side of the screen, I tried to squeeze some quite a bit in one screen, so I'll simplify it here. So at the very top diagram on the right-hand side, we're talking about risk and potential return. And you notice to the left of the screen, of the left of that little diagram, it says cash equivalents. So cash, you have low risk and low return potential. All the way to the far right of that diagram, you see high, and you see stocks at the other end, high. So you have a lot more risk and higher potential return. So there's a balance between risk and return, and you need to kind of understand that when you're putting together the investment choices in your portfolio. So that's what that's saying. The diagram underneath, a little more detailed, but here we talk about now I put down mutual funds because, typically investors, when they're starting for the first time or start, particularly in a retirement account, you're investing in mutual funds, and mutual funds will give you diversification. And there are many choices and options there. So this diagram just uses the term mutual funds. We don't have to be invested in mutual funds, but it was just easy for this particular slide. So the point there is, in that first chart where you have cash, bonds, and stocks, there are different ways you can, what they call asset classes within those categories. So for example, it will, like you see on that chart, it says mid cap equity funds or small cap equity funds. So for example, Apple, this company Apple is a large, and what determines whether it's a mid cap, a small cap, or a large cap is the size of the company and how many shares they have outstanding. So in the market. So for example, Apple Computers, or they don't call it Apple Computers, what it's called Apple. Apple is a large capitalization company, large cap company. But because it pays a dividend, is not considered a large cap growth, it's considered a large cap value. So different asset allocation is, in effect, you would be diversified in all these different asset classes in your portfolio. So like, for example, another example, Amazon. Amazon is a large corporation, large number of shares. There would be a large cap growth. They do not pay a dividend, so it would be a large cap growth company. So depending on how you're invested determines that. So growth versus value, typically, companies that are invested in value, mean they pay a dividend, would be less risky than a company that's growth. But doesn't mean, and depending on your risk tolerance, again, your time horizon, how you should be invested. So for example, I have clients who, they will forego higher potential returns because they want more downside protection. They want less volatility. They would rather be comfortable with earning less if that means that would lower their risk. So risk, meaning a risky portfolio. So those are the things to consider. And so key things to consider: risk and return, asset allocation, and which gives you that diversification. And the other important thing is rebalancing your portfolio. So at the very last diagram there shows you that, let's say you had your allocation was 50% stock, and looks like 15%, maybe 15% in bonds, and 35%. It's small on my with my glasses here, but let's say looks like the allocation is 35, 15, and 50, right? Let's say stocks did really well that year, then your new stocks did really well. So now the stocks in your portfolio represent 60% in your portfolio versus the 50%. Well, periodically you need to rebalance, and there are different ways and on how to rebalance in your account. But historically, if you do periodic rebalancing overall over a period of time, you will have higher rate of return in your higher performance than in a portfolio that didn't have where you didn't do rebalancing. So rebalancing is key. So
Lisa,
I
have a question about the rebalancing. How often should you look at your portfolio and your 401k to make sure that you have your allocation set or balanced?
Okay. At a minimum, you should look at it, at least your 401k, at least on an annual basis. And there are different ways to rebalance. You can rebalance arbitrarily on a time basis, like quarterly or annually or every 6 months, or you can rebalance based on percentage. So if your let's say your allocation in your 401k is supposed to be 50% in stocks, let's say, and you're giving it a tolerance of maybe 10% on the upside and maybe 10% on the downside. So if, for example, the allocation grows more than from 50% stock to 65% stock, well, now your tolerance level, you may have like if it changes by more than 10% either direction, up or down, then you would rebalance. So there are a number of ways you can do it, but I think one effective way is giving a percentage. So you periodically, so you might look at it on a quarterly basis, depending on how the market's done or how your portfolio is invested. You may have to rebalance a little often. Typically, like in some of our managed accounts at the firm, they look at the allocation on a quarterly basis and decide to make changes, and it could be very small changes to stay within those allocation percentages. So in that case, you might want to work with an advisor or something to talk about what's the best way to do that.
I know, historically, and before I knew better, I would set it and forget it, and that can be very risky, to do something like that, because you're not getting the most out of your portfolio. And like you just said, that 10% swing one way or another can make a difference in the return on your investments.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. I have a question that has come in.
Uh-huh.
What do you think about investing in ETFs for someone who's not familiar with investing in stocks?
Repeat that again. Oh, repeat that again. Sorry.
Let me try it again. What do you think about investing in ETFs for someone who is not familiar with investing in stocks?
Okay. ETFs, which are exchange traded funds, they are professionally managed, just like mutual funds, and typically investors buy them for many different reasons. It allows you to follow for example, they allows you to follow an index. Let's say one of the more popular ones. There are many indexes out there like S&P 500. So a lot of these funds that follow the exchange traded funds, or ETFs, that follow the S&P 500, it's considered a passive. It follows the index. So if the index is up, it goes up. If the index is down, it goes down. And ETFs have lower internal expenses, so they're very inexpensive as compared to, let's say, a mutual fund, typically. And there are some very good broad ETFs that you can follow. So the same could be for ETFs. The same could also be for mutual funds. So they are excellent ideas for people who are just starting out and not sure. It allows you to have exposure to a whole entire index, whatever that index. There's many indexes out there, hundreds of them, that you could follow. That it will allow you to invest amount of money and have broad exposure. So then you'll have diversification. So it's a great idea.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Next slide, please. Okay. So one of the things that while you're investing, particular on accomplishing your goal, whether it's for 2021 or for a much longer time horizon, that you focus on the goal and not the day-to-day ups and downs of the market, because the market goes up, it goes down. We have market corrections. Just there are many things that have impact, and you want to focus on, are you accomplishing the goal, and stay focused, and this way you take the emotion out of it. One of the things is being invested in the market is very emotional, and one of the things that working with an advisor will help you to do is hopefully manage your emotions, help you to stay in the market when you feel like, oh, I need to get out. Um, and it's so by taking the emotion and having that discipline about, recognizing that recognizing that you have enough emergency cash savings, so if you ever need to get money, you're not having to sell off investments in the wrong time in the market. So that's important. And then also, recognizing that when the market dips, this is a great opportunity to look for bargains, companies that might have been on your radar, but they were too expensive. If the market goes down and Amazon drops, I don't know, 200, 300 points, it may be considered affordable for you. So that focus, that disciplined focus, will help you to realize your goal given the market ups and downs. And so focusing on the goal is extremely important. That's kind of what the slide is trying to say, other than the ups and downs and the constant day-to-day noise of what's going on in the market. Next slide, please. Okay, so reasons to seek an advisor. Okay, so these are kind of fun. Okay, so saving and investing are too important to mess up. So just like if you need to go to a doctor, you seek out help. You go to a doctor. If you need to go to a lawyer, you don't go in there and represent yourself. You get a lawyer. So just like with investing, if this is not your area of expertise, then seek out experts in the field that can help you. Okay, so that's one. And as you get older, number two, as you get older, the fewer do-overs you get. So if you are 60 years old and your portfolio is down by 30-40%, you have less time to recover from that. So once you get older, it's important that you get it right, because you just don't have that many do-overs. Third, you may lose interest or get busy with life and all the other things that's important in your life that you just don't even look at the statements anymore. Then if you're not paying attention, then you should get an advisor who is required to pay attention. And also you want to do periodic reviews. So that's one of the reasons why working with advisor, because you have someone who will do these reviews, make changes, make adjustments, because this is not something that you kind of set it and forget it. There might be times when we need to reallocate, change in investments. You might need cash. I mean, there are many things to look at that makes sense, that if you're not going to spend that kind of time to do it, then you want to work with somebody who will. And another consideration is how involved do you want to be. So similarly, the less involved that you want to be, then you need to work with an advisor who will be more involved. So that's important there. Everyone's situation is unique. So advice or a certain investment portfolio for one client may not be ideally suited for you. Just depends on what your situation is. And if the goal is financial independence, and I would assume that everyone who's listening to this broadcast is looking for financial independence, then while you're on that journey of saving and investing wisely, sometimes it's helpful to bring someone along to guide you along the path. So those would be some key reasons to why you would seek advisor. Or another example is, like, for example, I have clients who have certain assets with me, and I'm the advisor there. And then they also have self-directed accounts. So it doesn't mean that you can't do a combination of both. It just depends on your unique situation. Next slide, please. Okay. Now this one is a really interesting slide, because what it shows you is that as we have uncertainty, the emotions that a client feels goes along this continuum. So you can see that's excitement in the beginning. Wow, this is a great investment, and you're euphoric. And then let's say the market takes a downturn, or maybe there's some bad news for that company, and you have anxiety and denial and fear, and then you don't know, should I sell? Should I stay in the market? I mean, just remember, if anybody was in the market during 2008, when the market back then went down 800 points in a single day, now we've seen those kind of drops, and but back then it was a big, huge shock. What do you do? I mean, you're in a panic. What do you move? Do you make changes? So this emotional slide just shows how that emotions can impact your financial performance. So that is another reason why sometimes working with a financial advisor can do that intangible thing that just kind of coach you to say, wait a minute, we've seen these kind of markets before. This is what our analysts are saying. We may go to some a little bit more cash for safety, but you don't want to sell out now. Just hold your hand through the process. Yeah. So there would be some. Let's see. And I think we have one more slide after this. Next slide, please. Okay. So in closing, a couple of things that I think is important to make sure that for those of you who have investment accounts or have 401ks or in retirement or on your way to retirement, it's important that you make sure you get your house in order. You make sure you have current beneficiary statements, that you have trusted people who are set up as power of attorneys on your accounts. It's just so important how little things, just not having a beneficiary statement can put so much puts your accounts in probate, and it just creates so much work and effort and cost and expense for your loved ones that you left behind. And then maybe your assets are not going where it's supposed to, unintended. So it's important that you periodically, on an annual basis, just kind of look at your financial papers, make sure that it's just easier for those who may need to care for you. Any questions?
I have one, Lisa.
Mm-hmm.
As I plan for retirement, how should I work the calculations? Similar to what you just spoke about having that 3 to 6 months of emergency fund. How should I make those calculations so that I am in a safe place for retirement?
Okay. So are you, one of the things is you and that's what's good for whether you're working with an advisor or you're using some of those online tools to determine, are you saving enough for retirement? So one of the things that as you're getting close to retirement, you need to have some analysis done that kind of says, okay, what's going to be my expenditures in retirement? So let's say I say that my cost of living or the income I want to have in retirement, let's say I'm just going to pick a number. Let's say it's $40,000, let's say. Okay. Then it's going to cost me $40,000. And of course you have to add on inflation and cost, that kind of thing. But you look at, so how do I make sure that I have enough for that? Well, one, you need to look at what are your sources of income are going to be in retirement. So obviously you can have Social Security, you may have a pension, you may have other assets like a 401k. So the monies so to make up that 40,000 in retirement, that my desired lifestyle income, let's say, then I have to look at my income sources. So one of them will be Social Security. And then if I, in pension, but if I don't have a pension, which lots of people don't have anymore, then the rest of the difference from what I'm needing in retirement, 40,000, and let's see what I'm making in Social Security. Let's say I'm getting in Social Security 15,000 a year. I'm just making up numbers. Then that difference has to come from my investments. So you need to make sure that you're maxing out your 401k. If you're working for a firm, maxing out, or have a business of your own, that you're maxing out your 401k contributions, your retirement contributions, that you're fully diversified, that you're looking at how you're invested and making sure that um, you diversify, you're rebalancing, you're doing those kind of things, you're contributing on an on a periodic basis, whether that's monthly or annually, to that plan, and then review that plan on an annual basis. So and then you look at your goals in retirement. So if in retirement you and your husband or significant other want to travel, factor all that into your budget. So maybe it's not 40,000 that I need to live on. Maybe it's more like 60,000 I need to live on. So you need, otherwise you would be like some of, working and trying to work. You see some of these seniors who are working in jobs and they wish they were retired because they didn't save enough during that time. So now is the time to have a financial plan done. Look at, okay, what do I have? Take stock of what you have, where your assets are, how are they growing? When's the last time you looked at the performance of those assets? So do those basic things. So that could be one of your plans, for 2021 to kind of get my house in order. Am I saving enough for retirement? Am I on track? Do I need to increase? What do I need to do? Might need to get a part-time job in retirement to offset expenses. So, but this is the time now to make that, is to decide that, is to look at that. So those would be the things you would need to do to make sure that you can have a comfortable retirement or something far worse.
All right. Thank you, Lisa.
Thank
We got
you.
a lot of points about great presentation. Another question that came up, it says, I'm not sure how much I am supposed to be saving throughout the month. Any advice on the calculations that can be done?
Well, one, I would do a budget. What my income is, what my expenditures are, and then what's left over, how much disposable cash do I have at the end of the month. And so that's the first question. And then so once you've done a budget, then the question is, do I have enough in an emergency reserve for emergencies? Because if you don't have enough, what's going to happen is emergency will happen, because it always does, and you're going to have to put it on a credit card, or you're going to have to borrow money, or you're going to have to take out a loan. I mean, if there's no cash, what are you going to do? Or if you're living in areas where you have to worry about storm, like Florida, your cash reserves may need to even be higher. So first step is, one, you need to do a budget and find out where, and then analyze that budget. Is there enough cash? Is there enough disposable cash? If there's only $100 left versus if there was 2,000 left, then you have different options and different choices. So those are things to consider. And then you need to analyze, if it's only $100 left, well, why is that? Am I not bringing in enough income? Or if I'm spending too much, I may need to make some choices, some decisions, so that I can have more disposable cash. But like you tithe to church 10%, you need to set a savings goal for yourself. And the first thing is to build up that emergency savings. So that emergency savings is going to be your 6 months of your monthly expenses. So if your monthly expenses are $2,000 a month, 2 times 6 is 12. You need 12,000. As you get older, you want to even increase that even more. So that's how you know if you're saving up. Then the question is, are you maxing out putting in the maximum amount to retirement plans? If you're not doing that, then you know you're not saving enough. If you're not saving for yourself every month, then you're not saving for yourself. So the big thing is set aside a budget, and then set aside a budget and analyze your income versus your expenses, and kind of decide where you are, and then make some decisions about that.
And I always say, thank you, Lisa. I always say, squeeze yourself a little bit. Because if I can squeeze myself to buy that extra pair of shoes, I can squeeze myself to save a little bit more. So take those things into consideration and go ahead and take it off the top
Yeah.
so that you
Pay
don't
yourself.
have to do it after the fact, and that's how I look at it. I'm going to invest in myself first, um, before, I do anything else. So I'm investing in my future. Is how
Absolutely.
I like to look at it as well when I can.
Excellent.
Another question. What percentage of disposable income do you suggest we should invest or should be invested?
Well, this comes down to your goals. What are you trying to accomplish? So, for example, okay, so now we've done our budget, we have, you know, decent amount of disposable cash, then the question becomes and we've got a plan for setting aside our emergency money. And then the question is, well, what are my goals? Well, if my goal is to buy a house, or if my goal is to come up with enough down payment to get a new car and get it in, get it at a reasonable car payment, or if my goal is to send my kid to college, or if my goal is to pay off debt, then that determines how much of that disposable cash should be used to do that. Because the question is, once you have that disposable cash, are you using it for your goals, or are you just spending it, so what will determine how much and then you said, oh, the question was, how much should you use to invest? Well, once you've gotten your foundation in place, meaning disposable cash, we haven't even talked about things like insurance and all this, so that's a whole nother topic. But once you've gotten your fundamentals in place, then and you determine what your goals are. So if it's saving for a house, well, you determine when you want to buy this house and how much down payment do you need, will determine from that. But then quite a bit should go to investing, because what's the point of the investing? The point is to have wealth creation, or the point is to save for retirement. So what's that wealth for? Then you're investing until you reach those goals, and you use that cash to accomplish those goals. So significant. So in other words, once you've set aside your normal savings and you still have disposable cash, which is a great thing, then you should invest considerable amount,
Okay.
because you have these other goals. Because you always got a goal. Send this
That's
kid
Thank
send
you.
this kid to college, pay for school. You've
That's
got
right.
a goal.
And
Yeah.
and that's actually a great segue into what I wanted to ask about sending the kids to college. Some of us on the live are grandparents, and
Mhm.
how can we invest in our grandchildren's future? Any recommendations of things we can set up for grandchildren
Well, some of the
and
accounts
children?
you can set up, particularly investment accounts you can set up for kids, are what are they? Either if you okay, so question is, are you just saving for college specific, or you just want to have some type of funds for the kids, so when they get a certain age that this money is theirs? So it depends on the goal, and you have options. So if it's college specific, then there are what's called 529 college plans. Some are given by the state, some are just um, um, through investment companies, like, let's say, American Funds or something like that, where you can invest at will, um, for that college, for college planning. If the child gets a scholarship, so let's say these kind of investments like 529, I'll give you a simple example. So let's say you're putting in money for a 529. The money is not tax deductible or anything, but the money grows tax free, as long as the money is used for qualified expenditures like tuition, room, board, books, that kind of thing. So if the kid gets a scholarship, you have some choices, whether you can, use another child for the money, or you wouldn't get penalized. Yeah, I won't go into the specifics, but there are different rules, okay, for that. So there's ways to handle that if the child gets a scholarship. Then there's what's called custodial accounts, or another term, a uniform gift to minors. So you can set up a custodial account. and you can invest that in mutual funds, stocks, bonds, cash, however you want to do it. That's not college specific. And what happens is when the child gets majority age in your state, and like for the state of Tennessee, it's either 18 or 21, I don't remember, either 18 or 21 majority age, then that money technically is the child's. But if the child doesn't know about the account, of course they won't know, but technically that's theirs. That means if they just want you give them this money, they can blow it. They can go buy a car. I mean, you don't have those kind of restrictions on it. So there are different types of accounts that you can set up depending on what your goals are. So if it's just to make sure the child has some money when they get 18 or older, or you want to be college specific, then there's some options like a 529, that kind of thing.
Okay. Thank you. Another question we had was, as we are saving our 30 days challenge that you heard about earlier on, we want to invest those savings that we have for the 30 days challenge. And I just want to repeat that challenge is started today, February 1st, and we'll run through March 2nd. But can we start an investment club?
Okay. And you can start an investment club. The big thing about investment clubs is you have to have, and investment clubs are a lot of fun. You learn a lot. People do research and they invest, and the big thing about investment clubs that you have to have is the accounting. So, for example, somebody, however you set it up, incorporate the investment club, you got to make sure that someone does the accounting and the bookkeeping. So, for example, if you put money into it and now you want to take money out, who's doing the accounting, keeping up with the shares? What happens if somebody dies? What happens if somebody gets married? Someone gets divorced, all those kind of rules. So you need someone to, and if you've got that capability in place, then it's good.
Okay.
A lot of fun, and yeah.
Okay, good. Well, I don't see any additional questions that have popped up. I'll give everybody another minute or two to see if they have any questions that pop up. Lisa, this is good information. We want everybody to be prepared as we are going into retirement, and some of us are already retired and doing fantastic. This is just another way that they can yet improve upon what they've been doing already in their retirement years. And looking at the different risks that we can take when it comes to investing, and not looking at investing as something that is scary, but something that just adds to this life's journey. And if we do it right, it makes things so much easier for us when we do retire and we no longer have to think about going to work.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Well, I want to thank you, Bridget, for inviting me. This was a wonderful opportunity to speak to your group here, and thank Pastor White, and I really appreciate the opportunity.
Okay, awesome, Lisa. Thank you. And hey, we'll reach out to you about that investment club and a little bit more. Should we set it up as an LLC or incorporation, as you mentioned? Because it's like a business, but I understand there's some legalese we need to make sure intact, as well as accounting principles, so that we make sure that everything is covered. I'm sure other entities have hit those, and we want to make sure we think of them up front versus after that.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And Lisa, you're welcome. We'll put your information on the church's website. We have a directory, and for those of you who would like to talk to Lisa further, her information will be available. As I said, she has a wealth of information, and has been a very, very good for me and my financial needs. All right. Well, thanks everybody. Have a great day. All right. Bye-bye.
See you. Bye-bye.